What is it with this man and shampoo day? For me, it equals Super Saiyan transformation. Too much volume. Too much. Why are we even talking about my hair? This is a channel about languages. Metatron. Hello, noble ones. Welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. Check this out. I found this video, not the first one, other than again, the only video about language learning will never lead consume the language. I might watch this one another day, but today we're watching today we're watching a TED Talk. Now, when it comes to TED Talks, some are actually really good. You know, you watch your TED Talk and you're like, man, this person is really, really smart. And then, you know, it's nice. It's a really lovely experience. But other times, TED Talks can be a little bit like, I don't know about that. So I don't know about this one, but the title kind of rubs me wrong. The Secrets of Learning a New Language. But then again, who knows? Maybe it's great. So let's watch it. Oh, actually, wearing headphones could be a way to domesticate the Super Saiyan hair. Oh, very nice. Look at that.
I love learning foreign languages.
Me too.
In fact, I love it so much that I like to learn a new language every 2 years, currently working on my 8th one. When people find out about me, they always ask me, how do you do that? What's your secret? And to be honest, for many years, my answer
Do they?
would be, I don't know. I simply love learning languages. People were never happy with that answer. They wanted to know why they are spending years trying to learn even one language, never achieving fluency. And here I come, learning one language after another.
Actually, that is a good point. When she says that she speaks 8 languages and that she learns a new language every 2 years, I wonder if at the end of the second year she is conversational in that language, fluent in that language. Like, what's the level, what's the threshold that she chooses before starting a new language would be something interesting to see. Let's see what she tells us.
They wanted to know the secret of polyglots, people who speak a lot of languages.
Polyglots
That
on
made me
YouTube
wonder
is
too,
another
how do
definition.
actually other polyglots do it? What do we have in common?
Yeah.
And what is it that enables us to learn languages so much faster than other people?
Please.
I decided to meet other people like me and find it out. The best place to meet a lot of polyglots is an event where hundreds of language lovers meet in one place to practice their languages. There's several of such polyglot events organized all around the world, and so I decided to go
Man,
there
I should
and
go.
ask polyglots about the methods that they use. And so I met Benny from Ireland, who told me that his method is to start speaking from day one.
Okay, that's an interesting one already. Would I agree with that? Is it good to start speaking from day one? Kind of depends on what you mean. So that sentence, that statement should be qualified in the sense that in my experience, yes, it's always good when you have like lessons that you learn a little bit of grammar, you learn a little bit of vocabulary, you learn a little bit of pronunciation, and then at the end of the lesson, maybe the last 20 minutes, that's how I was doing it, you have the students try and practice those actual rules that they learned, which at the moment are kind of cold on a notebook in conversation. With that being said, I would not encourage someone to start facing natives on day 1 or day 7 or to even try and move to the country and immediately try to speak, because if you do that without having a solid basis, then what happens is that you might learn sentences that are wrong because you don't have an understanding of the very connectors and syntactic rules that a language has. Now, given speaking is the best way to learn a language, hands down. So I'm not disagreeing with her or this Irish man that she's speaking about, but it is also important to have a solid basis, solid groundwork on the language, which can be achieved in 6 months, can be achieved in a year. For Japanese, it took me 2 years before I felt sure enough to be able to move to the country and start speaking. But then the level, the speed at which I was improving was a lot faster because I had a good foundation.
He learns a few phrases from a travel phrasebook and goes to meet native speakers and starts having conversations with them right away.
Right.
He doesn't mind making even 200 mistakes a day. 'Cause
Sure,
that's how
mistakes,
he learns,
not a
based on the
problem, yeah,
feedback.
sure.
And the best thing is, he doesn't even need to travel a lot today, because you can easily have conversations with native speakers from the comfort of your living room using websites.
Of course, important to underline that chatting practices a different skill, reading and writing, as opposed to actually speaking vocally, which is usually what people want. Like, that's one thing I used to tell my students. People usually want to be able, when they say I want to learn a language, it means they want to be able to speak it with another person who is a native of that language. But oftentimes the people that want to achieve this goal, they try to reach it by using different skills. They will spend a lot of time translating. And you know what translating does? It gets you good at translating. And then they listen a lot, which is extremely important. If you read a book, You're not going to learn to speak because you're not speaking, you're reading. All of these things are good, complementary-wise, but you have to speak if you want to speak.
I also met Lucas from Brazil,
Lucas.
who had a really interesting method to learn Russian.
Let's see.
He simply added 100 random Russian speakers on Skype as friends. And then,
100.
seriously, and then he opened a chat window with one of them and wrote hi in Russian. And the person replied, "Hi, how are you?" Lucas copied this and put it into a text window with another person. And the person replied, "I'm fine, thank you, and how are you?" Lucas copied this back to the first person, and in this way, he had two strangers have a conversation with each other without knowing about it. And soon he would start typing himself because he had so many of these conversations that he figured out how the Russian conversation usually starts.
That is brilliant. I gotta give it to Lucas. That is from Brazil. That is brilliant. Actually, it's really, really good because then you see how they naturally speak. And then clearly, this is just written, so you would have someone to pronounce it for you because otherwise you might end up constructing sentences that are correct but mispronouncing them horribly. But it's actually pretty smart.
What an ingenious method,
Yeah.
right? And then I met polyglots who always start by
Man, I hate
imitating
that word.
sounds of the language.
Yeah.
And others who always learn the 500 most frequent words of the language. And yet others who always start by reading about the grammar. If I asked 100 different polyglots, I heard 100 different approaches to learning languages.
I wish instead of polyglots, you would just call them language learners because it's just that that word has become so obnoxious to me because of all the fake ones that just had to be, oh, I'm a polyglot. I don't use it for myself. I do speak several languages, but I don't use it for myself. I'm not like, oh, by the way, I'm a polyglot, hyper polyglot. Now you've even got the next level. So like polyglot became so common nowadays that they had to make a second tier, which is like, well, you are all monolingual idiots, but I am a polyglot. But after polyglots was like everywhere, everyone is a polyglot now. Like, okay, well then you're all polyglots, but I'm a hyper polyglot. What's next one? Mega polyglot? I wonder how we're gonna ultra mega polyglot.
Everybody seems to have a unique way how they learn a language. And yet, we all come to the same result of speaking several languages fluently.
I disagree
As
with
I
that.
was listening to these polyglots telling me about their methods, it suddenly dawned on me. The one thing we all have in common is that we simply found ways how to enjoy
That's
the
very
language
good.
learning process.
That's absolutely true.
All of these
Good.
polyglots were talking about language learning as if it was great fun.
Yeah.
You should have seen their faces when they were showing me their colorful grammar charts and their carefully handmade flashcards and their statistics
the
about learning
flashcard
vocabulary
type.
using apps, or even how they love to cook based on recipes in a foreign
Spaghetti
language.
pirotecnici, what the heck is
All
that?
of them use different methods, but they always make sure it's something that they personally enjoy.
No, I like this. Very good message.
I realized that this is actually how I learn languages myself.
Right.
When I was learning Spanish, I was bored with the text in the textbook. I mean, who wants to read about Jose asking about the directions to the train station, right? I wanted to read Harry Potter instead, because that was my favorite book as a child, and I had read it many times. So I got the Spanish translation of Harry Potter and started reading, and sure enough, I didn't understand almost anything at the beginning. But I kept on reading because I loved the book, and by the end of the book, I was able to follow
I
it
do
almost
that with
without
video
any
games.
problems. And the same thing happened when I was learning German. I decided to watch Friends, my favorite sitcom, in German. And again, at the beginning, it was all just gibberish. I didn't know where one word finished and another one started. But I kept on watching every day because it's Friends. I can watch it in any language. I love it so much. And after the second or third season, seriously, the dialogue started to make sense. I only realized this after meeting other polyglots. We are no geniuses, and we have no shortcut to learning languages. We simply found ways how to enjoy the process,
Yeah.
how to turn language learning from a boring school subject into a pleasant activity which you don't mind doing every day.
Okay, so this is a very good message. I really appreciate this. I may even go out on a limb and say that I agree with the speaker. It's doesn't happen very often, but it's good. It's good. Yeah, she's making a very good point. I think making it fun is tremendously important, and I think the reason, that's why I kind of wanted to expand on that, the reason why it's so important is because one, this way you're not going to give up. In fact, one of the main reasons why people don't reach fluency is because they give up before fluency, and since fluency necessitates quite a bit of time and effort, contrary to what unfortunately the fake polyglots tell you, and they're like, oh no, in 3 days I mastered Mandarin Chinese, Cantonese and ancient Chinese all at once, while whatever. That is one of the problems, the wrong expectations. So of course, if you are enjoying the process, if you're having a great time because you're watching the things you like, maybe you like anime, maybe you like video games, maybe you like, I don't know, action movies or horror or reading books, and then you do that in the target language because you're connecting it with something that you really, really like, it's so much easy to continue and not give up. The second reason is also the fact that if it's boring, you're gonna dread it. It becomes a chore. And you're like, oh my gosh, I need to do 2 hours of Italian or German, but no, I don't want to do that. I want to do something else. I want to watch a movie. I don't care. And so you start skipping. And unfortunately, one of the most important things when it comes to language learning is daily activity, because that's what our brains are hardwired to do. That's how we learn our first languages. It's not like we get a day off from our first languages when we learn them as kids. So yeah, you need to surround yourself as much as possible, dive in the language, be bathed in the language, and that is the way you do it if you're having fun, because you enjoy it. It's something you look forward to. You wake up in the morning, that's the first thing you want to do because it's fun. But if the process is not fun, then the whole methodology falls apart. It doesn't matter if you've got great books written by PhD this and PhD that, it's not going to work because you're going to have a terrible time, you're not going to look forward to it, and then you're going to start finding excuses not to do it. And even if you're extremely willfully, you have a lot of willpower as an individual, you're still going to do just the 2 hours that you need to so that you can just stop doing it. And that just doesn't work. You're not going to remember the stuff. And that's one of the reasons why nerds remember all of those things. Like nerds can tell you all of the different charts by heart of Warhammer Fantasy because they love the Wood Elves and the High Elves and Chaos Warriors. That is how much it costs to recruit a regiment, that kind of stuff. Nerds memorize it for the rest of their lives because they love it. And if you can do that in connection with languages, then you'll remember all the vocabulary as opposed to, oh, this is a boring list, which is why I'm not a big fan of lists, by the way. But, oh, that's a boring list. I'll read through it, remember it for 15 minutes, short-term memory, gone. But yeah, good.
If you don't like writing words down on paper, you can always type them in an app. If you don't like listening to boring textbook material, find interesting content on YouTube or in podcasts for any language.
Absolutely.
If you're a more introverted person and you can't imagine speaking to native speakers right away, you can apply the method of self-talk.
Yeah.
You can talk to yourself in the comfort of your room, describing your plans for the weekend, how your day has been, or even take a random picture from your phone and describe the picture to your imaginary friend. This is how polyglots learn languages. And the best news is, it's available to anyone who's willing to take the learning into their own hands.
The only problem with talking to yourself, which is something that I do sometimes, but the only problem is that you may end up saying something incorrectly. It's very, very likely, particularly if you're a new learner, and then you memorize it wrong because no one is there to correct you like natives would, or a teacher or a fellow student who's perhaps more advanced than you. So I would say, as a little caveat, do not use the self-talk unless you know already that the content that you are repeating has been vetted by a native or a professional, because otherwise you write it's completely wrong, you learn it wrong, and then you try and use it with a native and you spend so much time memorizing it, and then they're like, I don't know what you're saying. So do be careful with what she just said now, because it could be counterproductive.
So meeting other polyglots helped me realize that it is really crucial to find enjoyment in the process of learning languages, but also that joy in itself is not enough.
Yeah.
If you want to achieve fluency in a foreign language, you'll also need to apply 3 more principles. First of all, you'll need effective methods.
Yeah.
If you try to memorize a list of words for a test tomorrow, the words will be stored in your short-term memory.
True.
And you'll forget them after a few days.
Yep.
If you, however, want to keep words long-term, you need to revise them in the course of a few days repeatedly using the so-called spaced repetition. You can use apps which are based on this system, such as Anki or Memrise, or you can write lists of words in a notebook using the gold list method, which is also very popular with many polyglots. If you're not sure which methods are effective and what is available out there, just check out Polyglot's YouTube channels and websites and get
No, be very careful with that. Be very careful with that. I know that this is from like 5 years ago. Maybe it wasn't as bad, although I do think it was. But no, do be careful, because a lot of YouTubers that say they're polyglots, they are fake. They are frauds, they don't speak, they wouldn't be able to hold a conversation with a native. They do not understand when they hear the language that they're supposed to be fluent in among the 49 other languages that they speak, but they wouldn't be able to understand anything. They just know a couple of sentences. So do be careful when you look for polyglots. In fact, I would say avoid anyone who self-describes themselves as such, and instead look at people that, for example, go live in those languages, hear them speak live, and then you're like, okay, this guy actually speaks it. Well, let's see how he learned it or she learned it.
Inspiration from them. If it works for them, it will most probably work for you too. The third principle to follow is to create a system in your learning. We're all very busy and no one really has time to learn a language today. But we can create that time if we just plan a bit ahead. Can you wake up 15 minutes earlier than you normally do? Well, that would be the perfect time to revise some vocabulary.
Very difficult for me.
Can you listen to a podcast on your way to work while driving? Well, that would be great to get some listening experience.
Yeah, sure.
There are so many things we can do without even planning that extra time, such as listening to
very
podcasts
good
on our
point.
way to work
Very good
or
point.
doing our household chores. The important thing is to create a plan in the learning. I will practice speaking every Tuesday and Thursday with a friend for 20 minutes. I will listen to a YouTube video while having breakfast. If you create a system in your learning, you don't need to find that extra time because it will become a part of your everyday life. And finally, if you want to learn a language fluently, you need also a bit of patience.
Yep.
It's not possible to
a
learn a
lot.
language within 2 months.
Thank
but
you.
It's definitely possible to make a visible improvement in 2 months if you learn in small chunks every day in a way which you enjoy. And there is nothing that motivates us more than our own success.
Yeah.
I vividly remember the moment when I understood the first joke in German when watching Friends. I was so happy and motivated that I just kept on watching that day 2 more episodes. And as I kept watching, I had more and more of those moments of understanding, these little victories. And step by step, I got to a level where I could use the language freely and fluently to express anything. And this is a wonderful feeling.
It is.
I can't get enough of that feeling, and that's why I learn a language every 2 years.
Yeah, the reward
So
mechanism.
this is the whole polyglot secret.
Very true.
Find effective
Isn't that fun? As people who focus on languages, we do get that a lot. Reward, immediate reward. We get commended a lot, which is wonderful because if you think about it, if you're a mathematician, how many times have you been commended for getting the equation right? And people are like, oh my gosh, you're so good. How did you do that equation? Congratulations, Jules. This and that. Like, that doesn't happen, does it? So, and I imagine it's the same for a lot, a lot of fields, but in languages, you get continuous reward, which was one of the things that makes it addictive, I suppose.
methods which you can use systematically over the period of some time in a way which you enjoy.
Okay, well, I don't want to finish the whole thing, so if you want to finish it, there is still a chunk. She's going to mention a few specific languages, I suppose. So do check out the video in the link in the description to finish the podcast, not the podcast, the TED Talk. But yeah, no, this was a good presentation. There were just a few things that I think are a little bit, you just got to be careful with the polyglots, mate. But on this channel, I'm going to go on a crusade. I'm going to name them. I'm going to challenge them to come live and prove their skills. And then we'll see who does it, because it's not that I just want to mess with people, but I don't like how fake polyglots mess with a lot of people. Some of these people are you, and I care about you. Not to mention, it's just annoying that people just want all of the rewards and the fame, I suppose, if that's what they really want, of being fluent in other languages, which takes decades of work, but they never put in the work. That really annoys me, and it's something that I think is wrong because it's deceptive. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you tomorrow for my next video. Thank you so much.